Movies are time capsules. They tell us what was in style at the time they were made, what cinematic trends were happening, what the people and places featured in them looked like, and what the director was thinking and feeling. This was all on my mind recently when I revisited the 2005 film Cheflock and Wofson: The Movie, written and directed by Patrick Willems. It's a micro-budget 32-minute short featuring a cast of young, non-professional actors, an action comedy that tells the story of two best friends / crime fighters in a small town, on the hunt for their arch-nemesis. The title makes it sound like a parody of Sherlock Holmes, but it inexplicably bears no resemblance beyond the names. The film was made in the early days of digital video, before it had become common in Hollywood productions. It's shot on a low-resolution mini-DV camcorder, creating an aesthetic similar to Steven Soderbergh's Full Frontal or David Lynch's Inland Empire, except worse. But where those were deliberate artistic choices, here it appears to be made out of necessity. They simply couldn't afford anything better. Willems, also the cinematographer, tries to add some visual texture by deliberately shooting most of the exterior scenes with the white balance set to 3200 Kelvin, the color temperature for tungsten lights. This gives the scenes a distinct cold blue sheen, but it doesn't seem to serve any function. If anything, the blue tint is at odds with the upbeat tone of the film. The only apparent reason for the choice is that it looked cool when Spielberg did it in Minority Report. This sort of reference without meaning is indicative of many of the film's choices. It's clearly the product of a 16-year-old boy in the mid-2000s who watched a lot of Kevin Smith and Quentin Tarantino, and thought the right way to make a movie was to smear your influences all over every frame like a toddler finger painting. And so we have a perfect time capsule, a look back at exactly what someone like Patrick Willems was into in 2005. The film begins with a dance sequence set to the Romanian pop song Dragostea din Tei, better known as the song from the viral Numa Numa video. Then there's music from Final Fantasy VII, Gundam Wing, Metal Gear Solid 2, Kill Bill, a close-up of Ultimate Spider-Man number 74, ninjas, samurai swords, a conversation about Ghostbusters, a song from Franz Ferdinand's 2004 debut album, and fight choreography directly lifted from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. In fact, the very first image that appears on screen, text describing the titular characters as hetero life mates, is a term borrowed from Kevin Smith's Jay and Silent Bob movies.
I'm Jay, this is my hetero life mate, Silent Bob.
While the onslaught of pop culture references is juvenile and somewhat obnoxious, this movie is the right vehicle for it. The film never takes itself seriously, existing in a fantastical cartoon world in which supervillains casually shop at toy stores, and the main characters never take off their jackets or sunglasses, even when indoors. In a self-aware moment, the heroes deliberately strike a cool pose at the end of a fight, because that's what heroes in action movies do. And one chase scene is full of airplane-style gags, like the one where Cheflock is riding a new vehicle every time the scene cuts back to him. Unfortunately, this all occurs in a story with absolutely no stakes of any kind. The inciting incident occurs when the heroes simply stumble upon one of the villain's henchmen, and when they do finally find the villain, who has the absurd alliterative name of Insidious Ichabod, he's just shopping for toys, not even committing a crime. Watching it, you get the sense that many of these elements could work in a story that actually had some semblance of narrative momentum, in which every other scene wasn't simply the heroes returning home to talk about what they should do next, or where montages with no story function weren't dragged out for the full duration of the songs playing over them. Like, why do we need a 2-minute montage of Cheflock and Wofson driving from one location to another? Because what's admirable about the film is the way it creates a world with pre-existing history and relationships between the characters. When Cheflock tackles Reginald from a moving car and interrogates him and his plush penguin named Tubbs, we understand this is not the first time it's happened. When a frustrated Wolfson reminds Sheflock that in the US, the date is written differently than in the UK, we understand this is a recurring issue between them. The filmmaking craft, or lack thereof, lets the film down most during dialogue scenes. Eye lines are almost never consistent, and one gets the sense that Willems was entirely unaware of the 180-degree rule. Maybe the strongest visual gag in the movie, in which Sheflock appears to be hit in the face with a throwing knife, only to reveal that he caught it in his teeth, is rendered less effective by the direction the knife is thrown. In one shot, it's moving right to left. In the next, left to right. If we simply mirror the initial shot, keeping the knife moving from left to right, it becomes much more effective. While Willems struggles to create a story worth caring about for the first two-thirds, once the film shifts into its action-heavy final act, the filmmaking becomes significantly more confident and dynamic. It's an escalating series of action scenes. A chase scene turns into a group brawl with a bunch of ninjas, which concludes with a climactic sword fight. It could all benefit from tighter editing, but the geography is clear, and the chase successfully cross-cuts between 3 planes of parallel action. The final sword fight plays out like a comedic version of the Michelle Yeoh Zhang Ziyi fight from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but with the added excitement of watching untrained teenagers dangerously swing real metal swords at each other. Also, the subtle sight gag of having Wolfson eating waffles is pretty good. But putting aside the craft, what is Sheflock and Wolfson the movie actually trying to say? Well, probably not much of anything. Its intent seems to be just to have fun with a meaningless celebration of the media that inspired it. But that doesn't mean it's not about something. This is a movie about 2 men of unclear ages who appear to have an inseparable friendship. The women they encounter are significantly more mature and professional, and Sheflock and Wolfson react with immature hostility when they correct them or give them advice. They want to keep doing things their own way, and most tellingly of all, the villain of the film is obsessed with toys, constantly distracted from important matters by children's playthings. Sheflock and Wolfson the movie is the work of a filmmaker just over a year away from graduating high school. In the midst of thinking about college applications, and how he'll soon be leaving his childhood home and friends. It's a film about a fear of growing up, of having to put aside childhood interests and friendships and face real responsibilities. The opening scene shows the heroes trying and failing at the simple adult task of making a doctor's appointment. Later, they put aside their swords and nunchucks to go inside a Walmart, only for the scene to end with them being thrown out and running back home. The film ends with narration from the director's own mother, describing the success the characters would go on to have. And it feels like a description of his own hopes and dreams.
Their exploits would become the basis for 5 Oscar-winning films.
Was this intentional? Probably not. But you know, death of the author and all that. We're just working with what the text presents. A montage in the middle of the film is set to the Turtles' 1967 hit, Happy Together. When considering the subtext, there's something wistful about it. It's a film made by the director and his friends, about 2 friends. And we can sense this is one of the last times they would be happy together. Okay, so you all saw the news. There's going to be a 4th Matrix movie. Lana Wachowski is directing, and she's co-writing it with David Mitchell and Alexander Heyman. So far, we know that Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss are returning, and the film is supposed to begin production early next year. Look, I don't tend to do speculation videos or reaction videos or that sort of thing, but as anyone who watches this channel is well aware, I've spent a lot of time recently thinking about The Matrix. Like, more time than usual. I made a 40-minute video about the sequels, I have a whole podcast dedicated to the filmography of Keanu Reeves, I appeared on an episode of Beyond the Screenplay talking about the first movie, and that's just in the past couple months. So, when this news dropped, I was hit by a million emotions and thoughts and questions. This is so wild and unexpected and such a genuinely huge deal that I think it's worth talking about. So consider this a weird, loose follow-up to the Rewriting the Matrix sequels video. We'll call it, what the hell is a fourth Matrix movie made in 2020 even going to be? Let's start with the big question. How are Neo and Trinity back when they both died? Here's the thing. Through the Wachowskis' work, through The Matrix and Cloud Atlas and Jupiter Ascending and Sense8, they've been obsessed with the idea of the soul or consciousness transcending the physical body. And in the mythology of The Matrix itself is a place where conscious beings with no corporeal form can exist. One of the major aspects of the sequels is the revelation that most of the characters are computer programs, and that these programs are capable of emotion and free will. So with that considered, despite Neo and Trinity physically being dead, it's not a huge jump to imagine that their souls or minds could somehow exist within the Matrix. And to take it a step further, the major conflict of the sequels is about whether or not free will is really possible. So if Neo or Trinity did return to a new existence inside the Matrix, did they choose that themselves? Were they brought back against their will? Will this be like a Buffy season 6 scenario where she was painfully ripped out of heaven? I don't know, but considering the ideas about spirituality and artificial intelligence that have been a major part of the series since the beginning, I could see a next step being some sort of exploration of the concept of an afterlife.
Will we ever see him again?
I suspect so.
Okay, now what about the story? So there's the fact that the human-machine war ended at the end of the Matrix Revolutions, and a sort of détente was established. If we know anything about the Wachowskis, it's that they don't like repeating themselves and doing the predictable thing and rehashing what they've done before. So it's unlikely that they'll just say, well, the war is happening again, and return to the same conflict as the original films. The original series was about breaking free from all systems of control and achieving true free will, so where do you go from there? Well, this is why I assume Neo, whatever form he's in, will not be the main character. I could see this fitting into the recent trend of movies like The Force Awakens or Blade Runner 2049, in which new young protagonists meet older versions of the original characters. Unless, I don't know, it's a weird riff on What Dreams May Come, and Neo just wanders a Matrix afterlife and there are no action scenes at all. I mean, I'd watch it. Look, what excites me more than anything about this is the Wachowskis, or at least one of them, returning to making big-budget science fiction action movies. I'm not a huge fan of Jupiter Ascending, but I am a very big fan of Speed Racer and Cloud Atlas. I think they work best on a massive scale, since they're the rare directors that pack their movies full of big, challenging ideas while also insisting on innovating new kinds of visual storytelling with massive, imaginative action scenes. They straight up changed cinema. How many filmmakers can you say that about? This is exactly what I was talking about in the Cats video. We get a lot of big franchise movies that tend to play it very safe and keep the directors on a tight leash. There's just a small handful of filmmakers who can work on this scale with full control and do something really new and unique. You know, your Nolans and your Camerons and Spielbergs. And I would put Lana Wachowski up there. I'm pretty sure whatever this thing is, it won't look like any other movie that comes out that year. All of my issues with the sequels pretty much come down to one thing. I think the Wachowskis' reach slightly exceeded their grasp. They were trying to revolutionize transmedia storytelling and visual effects technology while running one of the largest film productions in history. Like I said in the video, I love everything they're aiming for, and I think if the movies had been made one at a time with an extra draft or two of each script, they could have been truly great. So now for this new one, it's just one movie. The script has seemingly been in the works for some time, and it's co-written by David Mitchell, one of my favorite novelists. Like, look, I got like almost all his books here. He's totally in line with the Wachowskis' ideas about recurrence and connectivity, but also a genius when it comes to structure. Like, if you haven't read Cloud Atlas the book, it's structured like a Russian nesting doll with the storylines divided up and cascading forward through time and then back again, so having him working on The Matrix is exciting as hell. I'm about to make a very hyperbolic statement, but whatever. This could be something like Mad Max Fury Road. It's a visionary filmmaker returning to the series that launched their career, more experienced, with huge resources, making a singular piece of cinema. Remember when we were like, can George Miller still do this? He's been making kids movies for the past 20 years. Oops, turned out he totally could. I have no idea what this Matrix movie is going to be. And that's what excites me the most. Okay, and now the part where I ask all the questions I have about this movie. Where's Lawrence Fishburne? Morpheus is still alive. Will his little hat return? Will we finally see him dance?
I remember you used to dance.
Will the Merovingian be back, and will we finally learn more about the vampires? Will a grown-up Sati be a major character? Will Don Davis finally return to do the music? Is this setting up a continuation of the series, or is this just a standalone movie? Is John Gaeta going to be back, and will he invent some new kind of visual effects language for the action scenes? How will The Matrix respond to an entire generation of action movies it inspired? Since this movie will probably make a lot of money, does that mean we'll then get another decade of the Wachowskis making big, crazy, original passion projects? And what is The Matrix like without Lily Wachowski? I really want to know. Okay, that's the video. As you can tell from my old movie, I loved samurai swords when I was in high school. I mean, who doesn't love them? They're awesome. If you've ever seen a Kurosawa film, you know how cool they are. So you'll probably also enjoy the documentary In Love with the Samurai Sword, which is streaming now on CuriosityStream. It's a look at the modern craftsmen in Japan who have dedicated their lives to making these swords, and the role the swords play in Japanese culture. If you're someone like me, who doesn't know anything about samurai swords other than that they look cool in movies, you should check this out. CuriosityStream is a streaming service dedicated to documentaries with over 2,400 titles to choose from, and available on a ton of platforms. A subscription is just $2.99 per month, but you can get your first 31 days totally free by signing up now at curiositystream.com/PatrickHWillems and using the promo code PatrickHWillems. The link is right down there in the description. You sign up now, you will learn stuff, it will benefit the channel, everyone wins. Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching this different, somewhat sillier than usual video. I was trying to do something a little bit smaller this week to like take it easy and give myself a break, and then the Matrix 4 news dropped and I ended up making 2 videos in one, so oops, that plan didn't work. Now one small correction, despite what the title says, Chef Like Mops in the movie was not the first movie I ever made. It was one of the first, but this is made for a better title. And if you've been watching the channel for 2 or more years, you might be aware of the fact that that was the first in a trilogy I made. There was a second and a third movie, and these are both feature-length films, and hey, maybe I'll talk more about those at some point, I don't know. Anyway, if you want to support the channel and help us keep making these videos, make them bigger and cooler, you should check out the Patreon. You also get access to fun, exclusive stuff there. Follow me on all those social media platforms, listen to the Infinity Podcast and Can't Get Enough of Keanu. New episodes drop every Monday and Tuesday respectively. Go to our subreddit r/Thrillems, and we'll be back soon with more fun stuff.